where you are going. And now for your host, Lisa Schwartz.
Good morning, everybody. It is a beautiful Texas morning in April 4th. We're usually in our May 4th.
It's May.
It is May 4th. I'm going to need to start over. I need to start this whole
Reroll.
day. Oh my gosh. You know, I cannot believe how cold it's been here.
I know. We've had, yesterday and all last night. It was chilly. I like
Usually
it.
we're in our pool by now, and every time our pool hits about 76 degrees, we have a cold something, and it pops down to about 74. And I'm like,
That's too cold.
it's too cold. I'll get in it when it's about 78, and I'll get in it at 76 if it's super warm outside, but not when it's, 80 degrees outside. Anyways, I'm a little spoiled. Good morning, Brittany.
Good morning.
BP Daddy joining us this morning. Go ahead and tell us about our sponsors.
Okay, we still have Innovative Construction Services, a Texas-owned family business providing roofing and various construction needs in the DFW area and beyond. And we saw them post on Facebook this morning. Check them out. Innovative Construction Services, they've got a new shop that they did, a new driveway extension and patio, and it looks amazing.
Yeah, it does look amazing.
So check them out on there. Give them a call as they'd love the opportunity to serve you with any roofing and construction needs. And there's a phone, 817-672-5272 or info@innovativesvc.com. And then we have Express Employment Professionals, a staffing company that does their best to bring hope to our community. Look, they've got hot jobs for this month.
Hot jobs.
Hot job. Customer
I
service.
can't help it.
Customer service, purchasing, and administrative, starting at $17 to $20 an hour. If you or someone you know is interested, text the word work to Sonia at 817-371-0218, and she will hook you up.
Excellent. We always appreciate our sponsors for supporting our shows. We already have some people watching this morning. We have Miss Sharon Watts is with us this morning. My mama is watching this morning as well.
Grandma.
If you have joined us live, if you would put a hello, give us a wave, whether you're on Facebook or whether on YouTube, we want to say good morning to you. Tammy Murphy is with us this morning.
Hey.
I'm stoked about our guest.
This is going to be fun. This is gonna be
it is
interesting.
going to be fun. So Shay Stone comes to us. She is an author of a book called Be Better Than You, which I love that title. Love that title. And I think, I don't know if I found you or if you found me, but it doesn't matter. Here we are all hooked up. Shay, you're from California. Is that correct? Did I get that right?
I am. I'm from Los Angeles.
Los Angeles, California. So good morning. What's your weather been like out there?
It's actually been weird. It gets hot during the day, and then it gets super cold at night, and it's kind of tough to know which thread to follow around here.
Yeah.
So you just stay, like I have a beanie on, just in case, and then I have a t-shirt.
I got layers on. I can wrap it up when it's cold, take it off when it gets
right by
warm.
my side, just in case. Yeah, exactly. So that's how it's been lately. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, it is weird. So with that, when I was this morning, as I was just kind of praying, and I was like, God, what's with the weather? And the Lord was like, you have to expect that today's weather is not going to be tomorrow's weather. So always be ready. And obviously it was more than just about the weather.
Yeah.
It was about life, right? Like you can't expect tomorrow to be like your today. You can't expect every relationship to be like the ones that you've had. So be ready.
Right.
And with that, talking about that agility and the ability to flow with what life brings you. And Shay, I think that's where when you and I connected, we really connected a lot in our desire to see people be better than their current status, wherever they're at,
Wherever they're at.
Talk to me a little bit about just the message in your book and the heart behind it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I wrote a book 3 years. I was going to say I wrote a book and Be Better Than You. I was going to say it all together, but I wrote the book Be Better Than You. It took me about 3 years to write it. And the message behind it is basically is that there's nothing that you need to change about yourself, right? There's
that's
nothing
good.
wrong with right? There's nothing wrong with you. And usually when we get into this state of mind that we want something different in our life, or we want to become a better person, we think of change and we think of the things that we need to change about ourselves. And I always think of, when people are like writing songwriters, I'm a writer as well. And I work in in storytelling. So I always think about when people are writing and then they take the piece of paper and they throw it out, and then they start writing something else and they take this paper and they throw it out. And that's kind of image that I get when people are trying to figure out what to do with themselves or what to do with their lives. They figure out, what do I need to change? What's so bad about me that I need to make better? And it's like, well, that's it. You don't need to change anything. We just need to get better.
That's good.
And the more that you understand, and it's really about understanding. And the more that you understand yourself, the more you will understand how to take advantage. So my book, Be Better Than You, is more so about demonstrating how we already have what we need to take our lives to the next level.
That's good.
And it's all based off of a deep-rooted level of understanding.
Yeah. And so I think, I talk a lot about, Brittany, you've heard me say many times that that self-awareness is the number one proponent for overall success. And so really, in a lot of ways, that's what you're saying is, it's not about changing who you are. It's about understanding who you are. We often say, like, we need to know what makes us tick and what ticks us off, right? That self-awareness. And so I hear you saying that. Let's put a pin in that for a moment, because we have to tell people about your background. You are an animator for Disney. So talk to us a little bit just about your, I say, quote unquote, your day job, right?
Right. Yeah, no, it's totally a day job. I've been an animator for over 12 years now. And I've had the pleasure to work, for Sony Pictures, Blue Sky, PlayStation. And right now I'm at Walt Disney Animation Studios, which was my dream job as a kid.
Good for you.
Yeah, I've wanted to be an animator since I was 7 years old. And to be honest, getting older and going through that process, it always seemed super far-fetched and like it wasn't real. It wasn't going to happen. There's no way I'm going to be able to be that talented, for them to hire me. It's like, but I still strived for it, and thankfully,
here you are.
I've been blessed to, it wasn't easy, obviously, but, my life is built on imagination and faith. Yeah. So through the grace of God, I was
imagination
able to achieve
and faith. I love that. That's so good. Because really, how can you separate them, right? Because faith is really about letting God write on your mind's eye, letting him draw on your imagination, letting him show you things that don't exist. So, you can't separate one from the other. I love that you said that. I appreciate that.
Right. And faith is just believing in that and the picture that you create in your mind and saying, okay, well, yeah, that's real. Right. Yeah. If you can think it, you can do it. If you can imagine it in your mind, you can physically have it as well. There's nothing that you can imagine that can't happen. And as long as you have the faith and you believe that is the case, and that's what you're meant to do, and that's what you want to do. Right. You're home free.
You're home free. So I was just telling Brittany that you were casted to Maribel.
Right.
In Encanto. So would you say that is your greatest success so far, other than the book, or? It's a big question. You can be both.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is kind of two things can be true type of scenario.
Yep.
The book, to be honest, is my greatest success.
Yeah.
I've never had to. Animation has never called for what this book called for. Internally, faithfully. I was going through a lot while I was writing this book. There was a lot of different times that I could have turned away from writing it, justifiably so. Right. And I couldn't. Right. I absolutely couldn't. So, when you talk about purpose and the things that you're meant to do, in my definition, is what you can't walk away from.
That's
right.
Good.
It's the things
That's really
that
good.
keep pulling you. Right. And so for me, the fact that I finished this book and how hard it was, the fact that I wrote it completely by myself, there's no ghostwriting, like nothing like that. Yeah, and it's here, and the feedback that it's received so far, the emotional feedback that it's received so far is more than I can ever ask for. Where animation, it is a dream come true, and it's kind of like I'm living two dreams. But animation, I guess, it was a little expected, right? This is what I was striving for. This was the goal, where the book just kind of came. Right.
That's good.
And it was more so just me listening to the Lord and following in those footsteps. And here we are. I had no idea where I was going, but here it is.
Love it. So you talked about having some challenges while you were writing the book. Can you press into that a little bit? What kind of challenges did you face? And what was that key moment where you remember being like, nope, I'm going to keep pressing in? What gave you that drive? So it's two questions, really.
Yeah, those are two big ones. Well, the first thing is, I never actually sought out to write a book. Right. It kind of just happened a little waywardly. I talk about it in the book as well. I was on the phone with my mom a couple of years ago, probably about 6 years ago at this point. And we were just talking and kind of gossiping like we normally do, to be honest. and we kind of keyed in on one person, and I was just going on and on like I normally do. And I was just talking about what this person's missing, what they're not seeing. And, maybe they could do this and they could do that. And I'm like, oh, why don't people understand that? And I was like, you know what? And I just said it very casually, very jokingly, kind of, I should just write a book. Right. Because I'm talking to my mom. So, I'm just like, I should just write a book. And when I said that, she just got very silent, like dead silence. And my mom, she's a very spiritual, religious person. Right. And she's who I follow in that aspect. And she said, oh, now that's the Lord getting ready to use you.
Did you feel a physical shift in that moment?
I did. Yeah. I was so scared. I was like, because I was just kidding. Right. I was like,
leave it to mom.
I didn't know what to do. Like, it was actually a little scary to me that she reacted that way. And because it was so scary to me, I just blew it off. I was just like, yeah, and just kind of continued with what I was doing. But what I was saying, but because of the way she reacted, it was always just kind of etched in the back of my mind to write a book. Like, maybe I should, because it was new, but I never mentioned it. I wasn't serious about it. I had no admirations for it, but just because of how she reacted, I was just like, maybe this is a thing. And a couple of years later, I ended up working at I ended up moving to New York to work at an animation studio, and they ended up rewriting the script, which gave us a lot of time on our hands to just kind of hang out. And I just thought about it. I was like, well, maybe I should play around with this and see how it goes. So that's how it originated.
Yeah.
And,
okay.
As far as the hardest part of writing the book, there's a lot of hardest parts, because the first thing is I've never written a book before.
Right.
Writing wasn't my thing. I'm not a big reader. So writing a book, it was very daunting. Right.
Yeah.
It's like, how do I even go about this? So I had to read a lot of books. I had to start learning cadence and writing and rhythm and tone and things like that. And on top of that, I had to learn about what it is that I'm trying to.
Yeah. What are you trying to communicate?
Right. What am I trying to communicate? What's the message that I'm trying to put out there? And how do I do that? And not only that, I have to figure out what do I do? Right. Like, what do I do so well? Granted, I've always been the type of person that people come to for advice and stuff like that, as far as perception and things like that. But I'm like, to write a book, to communicate to someone that doesn't know me, it's like, I have to dig into my subconscious, right?
Yeah,
I have to really dig into myself and figure out what that is to communicate that.
And also, I think we've discussed this. So I've written 6 books. I'm working on my 7th. But you really, when you're in those moments, you have to really kind of pause to say, is this what I really believe? Do I really believe this? So sometimes you kind of flippantly type something because it sounds really good and you go, wait a minute, do I really believe this? And is it something I should believe if I don't? Or why do I believe it? So there are a lot of those moments where you have that opportunity to pause and reflect on, why am I writing what I'm writing? Why did it just come right out like that? And do I really believe this? And am I and then there's the whole nother level of, am I communicating it well? Because sometimes things make sense to us. That's why I like to have somebody read chapters back to me. Like when I finish a chapter, I'll be like, hey, Brad, can you read this out loud to me? Because sometimes I fill in gaps, Exactly. But I really appreciate you saying that, because you discover a lot about yourself and your core beliefs your values as you're writing a book.
You discover so much about yourself, and you kind of challenge yourself in the process as well, right? Like you said, do I actually believe this? Is this something that I actually do? And in some cases,
and is it reflected in my lifestyle?
Right, exactly. Like, is this valid? Is this viable? Is this something that I actually do? Or am I just, spitting things out, right? You have to make sure that that's not the case either. So yeah, a lot of work went into it. And for myself, and just with the book, just thinking about my audience and what I want them to gain from it and how I want to say certain things, because you don't want to lose people, which I'm sure you find that in writing as well. It's like, okay, well, I can't say it this way because I don't want them to fall off and assume this. Right. So for instance, a very vague and broad analogy would be like, okay, well, she's successful, or whoever you consider successful, they probably haven't had to go through the things that I went through. Right. So it's like, okay, well, Yeah, I have had to go through certain things. I have had to go through, toxic families. I did have to go through self-doubt and fear paralyzing me and things like that. Having my faith shaken. Like I did have to go through those kinds of things to get to where I am. Right. So even writing the book, keeping those kinds of things in mind, so people don't fall off and think like, oh, she, just assume whatever they want to assume and act like, we all don't go through that. Yeah. No one writes for free, right?
Right. Yeah. I often think when I'm writing a book, the majority of books, and I am like you as well in that I'm not a big reader, and which is hilarious because I've written so many books, but I have started a lot of books, and at some point it feels like a lot of authors just become super redundant, and I'm like, yeah, I got it, and then I don't finish it. And so I'm super mindful of that when I'm writing a book, that I'm like, I don't want to just fill up 120 pages because they tell you should have at least 45 to 55,000 words. Like I want it to make sure, which is a lot of times why I write my books in parts, like part 1, part 2, part 3, because I want them to know like this part will be completely different than the first. They will all mesh and they will be in harmony, but they're in some regard very different. And that's, I'm very intentional in that, because I think you're right. You got to have your reader in mind when you're writing, but also, not be swayed so much by the reader that you compromise your message.
Exactly.
Which can be hard as well, because everybody's going to have an opinion about your message.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's why it's important to make sure you understand what you want to communicate. Yes, right? Because if you understand what it is that you're writing and what your message is and what you want to communicate, then it's harder to be swayed, right? And so I did write the book myself, but I also had an editor, right? And so when she got to the point where she was editing, there were certain points where she was like, "Oh, we should say this like this instead," and I'm like, "No. I have to say it this way." Right. And then there are some points where I thought she was right. Like, okay, yeah, this is a little too wordy, or, maybe the tone is a little kind of whatever. And I would listen to her, but it was a back and forth thing. Yes. It wasn't just taking someone else's opinion and going with it, because I have to keep that person in mind, that specific audience in mind, and say, no, it has to be said this way. Yeah. Right. Yeah. For the impact to be what it needs to be. And I'm sure you're the same way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know if you know this or not, but my co-host Brittany is the voice behind my audiobooks.
Just saying. Really?
Just saying, if you want your book narrated and produced as an audio, she is a narrator for books.
I'd be honored.
That is a suggestion that I've been getting quite a bit. So hopefully I can make that happen.
It's a beating of a process, and she has mastered it. As far as getting all the specs and everything right. I mean, and she has mastered it. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Okay. Awesome. We'll have to do some takes, Brittany, and see how you sound, if you sound like Shay.
Go to some of my books and listen to some of the audio, and you'll be able to hear. There's samples that you can listen to.
Yeah, there's I know I'm supposed to write a book. Like, this is so good because I know I'm supposed to write a book in my life, but the greatest challenge I have is that this information is all out there in other places. But it's that grasping onto the way I interpreted it and the way it happened in my life is still beneficial, even though this information can be found other places. And it's like, there's kind of nothing new under the sun. It's all been done.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So how do you take that and make it new and create something new that's going to be beneficial to a reader?
Yeah. Well, one of my catchphrases is life is filled with nothing new. Right. Even us, we like to think that we're all different, but we're all an expression, right? Yeah. We're all an expression of the exact same thing. And the key word is expression. So like you said, there's nothing new under the sun, but the difference is how we express it.
That's right.
Good. And that's where creativity and uniqueness come into play. There's nothing in my book that you may have probably never heard before, right? It's probably some of the same stuff under the sun, but the difference is my delivery, right? The difference is the rhythm, and like I said, the tone, and how my wordplay, right? How I word certain things, and the order of operation within the book, even how the chapters go, because of the way I think about how I want to deliver this message. That's what makes it completely different than anything else. Good. Right. Yeah. The analogies are the concepts that I'm merging together, right? To create a certain perception, so people can see things differently, and have the story that I tack on behind it. Like these are the things that make great movies. These are the things that make great stories, right? Every movie that you've seen, it's all the same foundation, right? When you create a story or you create a character, we start with the same foundation. So I wouldn't, that's one thing I wouldn't be concerned about. I know a lot of people are concerned about that when they think like, oh, I want to write a book, or I want to be a coach, or I want to, start a podcast. And they're like, oh, but there's a million out there. But that's the uniqueness. That's your power. That's your advantage in the world and everything else that you want to do. So
knowing that your voice speaks differently than everyone else's.
Your voice speaks differently, but also you have a story to tell.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And that's why I was like, when you throw in your personal, like, hey, here's a concept, and let me share my story with that concept, then that concept becomes personal through your story. Right. And so your expression and your story personalizes what often is just this ideal or this concept that's out there that I can read about on Google, and now all of a sudden it hits because I'm actually living the concept through somebody's story.
And like you said, it hits different, and you're able to internalize it emotionally and get involved with the concept, right? And see things a little bit differently. And it's so funny that you mentioned that, like the surface type of scenario, because I purposely named all of my chapters something very generic. Right. Because of that. Right. So, and because I also know that I dive deep into these chapters in ways that, you probably never thought of before. Right. Just a new light and a different way of looking at things, especially when I tack on my story behind it, then talk about the concept and then wrap you around again with my analogies and stuff like that. You're like, holy shit. Like, oh, sorry.
You're good.
You're like, this is not,
it's fine.
Like, this is not, this is nothing like I thought, as far as that concept is concerned, as far as like think positive. Right. I have a chapter called Think Positive. It's like, okay, well, anybody can think of that chapter.
Yes.
Okay, I've heard that before.
Yeah.
I already know what she's going to talk about, but I can't tell you how much feedback I got from that chapter.
Yeah, it's good.
Right? Even be proactive. Someone actually told me before, they were like, you have this chapter called Be Proactive, and there's this baseline, meaning in psychology behind what that is. But what you said, like how you break things down in your chapter and what you actually say proactive means is completely the opposite of what
they think
psychologists and stuff like the baseline drive, right?
Yeah.
And that's what's important, Brittany, about having your own point of view and your own story and delivering it that way, because that may be what the people in your life or the people in the world need to hear. They need to hear it that way.
Yeah, that's good.
So I want to take a pause here and acknowledge some of our watchers that are watching live. Hope Jansen is with us this morning. Good morning, Hope. Morgan Kyler Peterson is watching us from YouTube Live. Lisa Mapes is with us. And of course, all the people that we had talked about earlier, several other people have chimed in. If you have a comment, a question, let us know in the comments. If you just want to let us know you're here, send us a little waving emoji. That's what it's for. We would love to let you know. I'm going to cut for a moment to your book so that we can actually let people see your book, and we're going to put it up on the screen. Because I'm a visual person. So I'm like, we keep throwing the title out, but there it is.
Sure,
I love this book. I love this title.
Yeah.
The title is, or the cover is very well done. And of course you can see it says, you already have everything you need to take your life to the next level. How encouraging.
Yeah.
I love that statement where it's like, wait a minute, what? And that goes back to, we talk a lot in our world about the seed of God and how God put into you the seed for everything to live out a life fulfilled, purposed, in prospering, growing, increasing, that the seed of God is in you. And then he wrapped that seed up with your personality and your flesh. And then of course we go through life, and I love that you're like, hey, there's a seed already in you. It's already there. We just want to help you discover it, water it, cultivate it, give it some nutrients, and watch it flourish. But it's already there. It's not something we have to strive for.
No,
yeah,
no, it's literally already there. And that's that's one of my biggest passions, is helping people see that.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, I just want to expose it to you. Right. So it's like, and it's so funny too, like when I'm coaching people and I'm talking to them about whatever they feel like their issues are, their circumstances, and I'll start digging, right, with questions, very probing questions. And
very probing questions.
And then right. And then so even question what their answer, like, why do you think that way,
Yeah.
right? And they'll start to answer their own questions.
And
And
so
it's so funny.
I tell coaches when I'm talking about, I said, your most powerful question is going to be this. And what else?
And what else? Right.
That's what I
Or
say all
why
the
is
time.
that?
And what else? Anyways, I apologize. Go ahead.
Just making, well, no, it's that. It's just making people think, right? And I think that's the problem, is that many of us don't, right? You know, we think because we have a brain, it's like, okay, all the activity going on in our brain means that we're thinking, and that's not the case. Thinking is a conscious process, right? And if you're not conscious in what you're thinking and the ideas that you have, and formulating an idea with all the thoughts that you have, then you're not thinking, right? So asking these questions to people that I'm coaching is like, their face starts to light up,
good.
once they start answering these questions, because I'm not the one doing it; they're doing it, right? And that's the beauty of it.
So, Shay, has your mom read your book?
So actually, my mom passed in 2020.
Okay, so before or after you published the book?
Before. I published a book last year, actually on her birthday, which is May 15th, which is actually in 2 weeks.
Okay, there are a lot of probably emotions around the releasing, since she was the one who really just breathed life over that statement.
She did. Yeah.
What a beautiful way to honor your mom. You know.
Yeah. Thank you. Luckily, she knew I was writing a book. She actually made sure that she was persistent, even as she was, going to tell me to finish it.
Yeah.
That I need to finish it. She's read my writing before. She knew the title of the book was Be Better Than You. She kind of had a say in the design of the book. So she was a part of the process, which, I couldn't be more grateful for.
Yeah.
But yeah, I released it the year that she passed.
Okay.
Or the year after she passed. I'm sorry.
On her birthday. On her birthday.
Yes, exactly.
Wow. But again, what a beautiful way to honor her and honor her memory, and that she just was the one that really just spoke that life into the book.
Oh,
so
yeah, for sure.
One of the things that you mentioned to me when we talked earlier is it's going back to the idea of expressions, and how animation is really all about being able to capture the emotions of a character, and then being able to capture that emotion in a literal expression, right? And you talked about how really your experience with animation has helped you understand human behavior a lot. Can you share a little bit, and how that's kind of helped you with the book?
Oh, yeah.
I found that fascinating.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, animation, it is breathing life into still objects. Right. So, for instance, Mirabelle, she's just like this. She's just still, no facial, no nothing. And it's our job to figure out, first of all, who she is, right, as a person. She's her own person. So studying who that character is, her background, her family, and things like that. And then you get into obviously animating her, which is my job. And depending on the storyline and where she is in the movie, I have to decide how she's going to react, what she's thinking, how she's feeling, her body language, and plan that out as her, not as Shay, right? Which is the challenge in animation is, you can't just pretend like, oh, I'm going to pretend I'm this person. I'm going to pretend that I'm jumping over this car and falling down, right? It's like, okay, well, you can't just do that. You have to think about who this person is, how they are, what their mannerisms are. For instance, pointing. If someone's going to point, you can't just go like that, because this is how Shay points. Shay points like this, but somebody else might point like this.
Right. Right.
Or somebody else might, be a little more insecure. So they'll kind of drop down and be like, kind of like that, So the manner, like studying those mannerisms and personality and mixing them together with the situation that the character is in, is where it gets really challenging, but that's actually my job. So doing that for 12 years and getting into the mind of different characters with different personalities, different backgrounds, different morals, some that I make be the complete opposite of, right? Some that I may not even agree with, but I have to make them so believable that the audience, connects with this person and believe that this person is who they are, right? So that's a real challenge with animation. Even if someone's feeling sick, I've had shots before, and it sounds crazy, but I've animated a character who was sick, and I promise that I actually started to feel sick because I was so
absolutely.
into
Absolutely. Yeah,
I was
totally.
so into them. And as an animator, we animate, we move everything, right? The face, going from here to here to here to here. So if a character's going like this, you're doing every part of that. So as far if they're feeling sick or if they're feeling sad or if they're feeling excited, you start to feel some of that.
That's
right.
so
You
good.
get emotionally connected with that. So with that being said, coaching, writing a book, understanding people's behavior and mindset and the thought process, it's natural for me to absorb all that and observe all that on top of, me kind of always being an observant child. Right. So it's like animation just exaggerated everything that I always was. And then it's just like, I'm just constantly getting better. Like my skill set is just constantly rising because this is something that was a hobby for me as a kid. I loved observing people. And then animation, that's our job, is to observe and study and, kind of be elite in that aspect as far as human behavior is concerned and thoughts. And then coaching and writing a book. It's just, I'm getting even deeper. And now I'm getting even deeper into myself. So it's just, it's really beautiful to be able to have that level of perception. And because like I've said recently, it gives you a certain level of foresight. Yeah. Right. That's super powerful and scary at the same time.
Yeah.
I say it's so interesting how this God-given gift of discernment and awareness of people's emotions and stuff has transpired in such different ways and different,
that's good.
Different employment, and stuff from a book to being an animator. And some people may just go, well, I have this gift and I'm an animator, but you've been able to expand that and be like, no, and this gives me insight into this, and this gives me insight into this. And I just think that's...
Yeah, it is
so
cool.
interesting.
It is cool. I mean, or even the opposite, to say, well, because I have the ability to really discern and read people and understand the heart behind their expressions. Some people might say, oh, well, you should be a counselor, but you could also be an animator.
Yeah, right. No, yeah, you could easily be an animator. And that's the beauty of life, is that there's so many different things you can do with one talent, one skill set, right? And it's like there's an umbrella of stuff you can do. And that's another thing that I try to explain to people. You don't have to just stick to one thing, right? And you have to allow yourself to evolve and grow, and it's okay to expand as well. Yeah. Right. So even with animation, I'm kind of slowly making my way out of it, slowly, but so it could be years from now, but it's just like, I achieved that. My dream was to work at Disney and become an animator and work on movies and things like that since I was a kid.
And it's also very unusual to be casted to a character. Is that correct? Don't you typically work like in groups, or is it that normal thing?
It's a team effort for sure. Yeah. For me, I only worked on Mirabelle in the movie. But on other movies and just in general, it doesn't necessarily always happen that way. Sometimes there are certain members of the team who are casted on to supervise a certain character. Okay. Not necessarily this is the only character you're going to animate. When that kind of stuff usually happens, when it's the only character you animate, is usually if you do a good job and they like a certain thing about how you express with that character, then you'll probably keep getting them.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was thinking. That was a big deal that you were casted to Mirabelle. Which we were, when I was talking,
really big for me, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, that was I'm like, in case you guys aren't picking up, like that's a big deal. Typically, not just one person is casted to a character. It's usually a team of people that are casted to a character, which just says a lot about your talent and your diligence. And what a beautiful movie as well. Oh yeah. Beautiful movie. And so I was like, we were thinking about like Mirabelle and how expressed, like after I met with you the last time, I was like, I got to go back and watch the movie again, just because I was like, now I feel like I'm paying attention to the way she expresses things. But I really appreciated the way you were able to say, because, in my mind, I'm thinking, how do you make the leap from being a Disney animator, a successful Disney animator, to I want to write a book over here? Because I've written books, and I tell people all the time, like, you don't write a book to get rich. You write a book because you have a message burning in your heart, right? And so I'm like, how do you get from one point to the other? And that for her, that link it's really all about helping people express who they are, come into the, and coming into bringing it to life, bringing things in people to life, bringing animated characters to life.
Yes. bringing people to life, bringing, like you said, their own character to life, and like I said, just understanding the advantage that they have in the world just by being who they are, just being who you are, it can take you further than you can imagine. Right. And like I said, there's nothing to change about yourself. So I just like to get in there and just pull that out and liberate people to where they're like, not only just, they're just motivated. I don't want to motivate you. I want to empower you. I want to liberate you. I want you to I want you to be ready to run through a brick wall, because you act like you believe in it, you're going to do it, right? Not just hit or miss, like, oh, I'm motivated today and then I'm not the next day.
Right. I don't like when I go places and I hear a speaker that's really inspirational. It makes me crazy. I'm like, you have not helped me at all, because tomorrow I'm still going to have all my issues. All you did was make me feel better for a moment.
I want you to be relatable.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'd rather you tell me your really sad story and how you muscled your way through it than just get up there and be like, you can do it, team. Everybody stand up and say, I'm a winner.
It's definitely weird. And that's why I'm kind of, with the way affirmations are presented, like in society right now, the trend of affirmations, surface level, I'm not a fan of. Right. Because it's very, I am this, I am that. And you're kind of proclaiming that, which is great, but like I said, the light of what affirmations is the light that affirmations is under right now, I'm really not for, because I feel like it's misguided, because it is surface and you're telling yourself something you obviously don't necessarily believe. Right. And it's tough, because the only reason I don't like it so much is because you have to be careful who you're talking to. Right. It's a very sensitive topic. Self-development is very sensitive for me. Right. Or just growth in general. So if your audience is obviously someone who needs help with a certain thing, which is why these influencers are out there, to help their audience, right? You have to be careful to say, all you have to do is say, I am this, I am that, and you will be that. Right. There's more to it than that.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of why I'm not a huge fan, because if you say, I love myself, every day you're saying, I love myself, but you don't really love yourself, and you kind of regurgitate after you say that, and you don't have any help, because the influencers are just saying, just say I love myself every day, and you will magically love yourself. But if I'm regurgitating every time I say that, I need help. Like I don't, how is that going to get better? Right. So for me, I like to actually get into that. Right. Let's dive into that and let's talk about what you don't love about yourself.
Why is it a challenge that you're having a hard time?
Why is this a challenge for you? Right. And let's actually unpack that and get all the skeletons out of the closet. That way we can see them. And then we can start to put things back together, right? And this, like I said, I want to show you where your power is. But for me to do that, we have to lay the cards out, right? And we have to be genuine about it, right?
And we do a lot of biblical affirmations in our world where you declare, like, if God says you are this, then we're going to declare that that's what I am, right? But we are also very intentional to be like, this is very different than just faking it. So it's okay to say, I'm declaring this is what I am based on what God says, but in my heart and in my mind, I'm challenged. And so it has to be, for me, it's an and, right? So I need you declaring these things on faith, but we're also not going to fake it or pretend like that you're actually in alignment with them. That's part of the process of coming into an alignment, but it's just part of the process. It's not the answer. And so I think you're right. I think the, influencers, if you're not really careful on how you present it, you're presenting that as the answer instead of part of the process.
Thank you.
For us in our world, it is absolutely a very important part of the process, because it is a part of the process, but it's just a part of the process. And so, I feel that and saying, like, look, because what's happening is we're teaching people to fake it. Moreover, we're also teaching them to feel a sense of shame that I'm supposed to be declaring this and saying this, and I'm supposed to be feeling it. And all it's doing is exposing how short I am of feeling that and being that and believing that.
And then it's hard to deal with that, right? And now that's the state of mind that they're in. And that's going to be hard to get out of, because what's the next step? Like you said, it's getting presented as the answer. And then we don't know what the next step is for when we're in this kind of, demoting state of mind, right? Because from empowering to, self-loathing, right? And it's like, okay, well, what's the next step? And that's something that's really important to me and that I go through in my book. And this is why it took so long. And because I'm like, no, it has to be set this way. I need to dive into that. I can't just say things and then move on.
Yeah.
I have to tell you what I'm talking about. I have to explain the scenario and things like that. And affirmations, my take on that. And like I said, think positive and being proactive and all that kind of stuff. I dive really deep into it.
Sure. Yeah. I know I share in the first book I ever wrote in it's just been changed. It got picked up by a publisher and they changed the title. It's called Come and See Now. And so, but in it, I talk a lot about how for me, when I first became a believer, and I really struggled very deeply with clinical depression and panic anxiety attacks. And I would come home from church or from Sunday school things or from small group, whatever, with women. And I would actually feel like all of the things in church that I was being told and that I was being taught, all it did was expose how much I was falling short of who I was supposed to be. So because there was no empowerment there. It was just a telling you that this is who you're supposed to be as a believer. The joy of the Lord is your strength. And I'm like, okay, but I have no joy in my heart. So I guess that means I'm weak. And it just exacerbated because there was that loss of discipleship, which is what the book's all about, is really talking about how the whole world is discipling people except for the church. All we're doing in the church is giving information and telling people how they're supposed to live their life, but not coming alongside them and really teaching them. You've talked quite a few times about being a coach. Press into that a little bit for us. Tell us if somebody's listening, if they're interested in connecting with you, how can they find you?
Oh, yeah, for sure. First off, you can find me on Instagram at shaystone.s. You can go on www.bebetterthanyou.com. And there's a coaching work with me one-on-one or something like that. I might have changed it. But you can find coaching on there for sure. And that's where I am. And I love doing it. And it's, like I said, I love empowering people and showing them the way and just demonstrating, like I said, that they already have everything they need. And that you have to continue to move, right? And just I'm all about forward motion. So for me, I'm more of a coach that it's done with you, not for you. Right. So I'm going to work with you. So,
absolutely.
Right. So
you're the player. When it comes to the game time, I'm not playing the game with you.
Yeah, I'm not playing for you. Right. No, you're playing for yourself. But I tell people all the time, I was like, it's like go-karts. As long as you're moving, I'm going to be right there behind you. So when I hit, you go even further.
Oh, that's good.
But if you're not moving and I'm hitting, nothing happens.
You're just going to be getting whiplash.
Yeah.
You're just going to
get vertigo happening.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So Shay, you think you'll write another book?
Yeah, I think so. For sure.
Do you have a topic in mind?
I definitely think that I'm going to be more specific. Kind of one topic at a time this time. For Be Better Than You, I kind of cover the base areas because my audience at the time were young adults, and my goal was to help them jumpstart their lives, right? Turn decades into days, so they don't have to, waste their 20s or 30s, whatever the case is, or teenage years, kind of trying to figure out the things that I've already figured out. So I cover self-reflection, I cover finance, health, being proactive, ignorance, being present, your environment, things like that, toxic, families and stuff like that. So moving forward, I probably would just dive into one specific topic at a time and just because each chapter in the book, I feel like it was very tough. And my editor and we had to keep shaving it, right? Because I actually feel like I could make a book out of each chapter. So
absolutely.
So I think that's something that I'm probably going to end up doing.
Good for you. Well, we really appreciate you being here today. It was a pleasure having you. It was fun to have you. And maybe we'll have you again, especially if you get that second book out. We'd love to connect with you. Brittany, it's always good seeing you.
Yeah, I know.
Hey guys, until now, listen.
Brittany,
now
I'm looking forward to hearing about that book. Too.
Yeah, right. We will not be here in June. The studio will be down in June, so there will be no episode in June. But we will catch you guys in July. And remember, from now until next time, enforcing purpose. It starts with you.